just thought of something I can talk about on my way to the store. Basically, I saw someone talk about how, like, Gen Z specifically has, like, much higher instances of, like, mental health issues, like anxiety and depression, are increased for Gen Z. And I'm trying to figure out what's going on that it's so bad with Gen Z. I personally think it's probably a lot of things. I think social media. I think, like, the generation doesn't have as much, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I really just want to know, like, what are the correlations for that? Like, for one generation to have, like, such high rates of anxiety, or just, like, increased rates of anxiety and depression. Like, what's the reason for that for this specific generation? I know some people are going to say it's because of, external factors such as, I don't even know what would be the reason for it. But I just think it's really sad to think of, like, so many younger people having anxiety and depression, or struggling with friendships, struggling to find relationships. I blame social media for that in a lot of ways. Like, I also think it has to do with mentality. I honestly believe people are more anxious and depressed when they have a victim mentality. I don't say this to be blame or to post blame, but it's like, it's hard to be happy when you see yourself as a victim. Because if you believe you're a victim, you're not going to be happy about anything going on in the world, because you're waiting for basically someone to care enough about your issue or your problems in order to be successful in life. I honestly think, and I'm not going to say Gen Z as a whole has a victim mentality, because I honestly could not say or make a claim like that, but I definitely feel like people who see themselves as victims, and I feel like there's so many, like, issues that, politicalized issues that people say this is why this generation is so depressed, because there's hateful people that are bullying them or things like that. I do think bullying could be another reason for that. I feel like so many people, like younger people, are scared to do things because of social media. Like, I was talking with some of my coworkers about this, how it's like club culture is not the same for Gen Z as it was for millennials, and a lot of the reasons people say it's not as fun is because people are more worried about that. People are so focused on their appearance, and everyone always has their cameras out because we have to film everything, or if you're caught looking funny, someone's gonna record it and post you online for people to make fun of you. So it's almost like, is it because bullying, people are more concerned about their image, and you're more concerned about your image because of social media, and that creates this anxiety where you're constantly worried about other people and what other people think about you? I feel like that could be one correlation. Maybe it's also because, the victim mentality, I've made a video about that before. I definitely don't think it's healthy to see yourself as a victim in every situation. Being a victim is not something that is a good experience for someone, right? When someone truly is a victim of hate or bullying, it's like, this is not to blame a victim in any way. Like, victim mentality is different from being a victim of, you know, some horrendous crime, or someone on the receiving end of someone else's horrendous actions. Because truly a victim is someone who has to overcome a traumatic experience in order to you know, heal and move on with their lives. But the problem is, someone will be a victim at some point in their life, and then it's like they never stop seeing themselves as a victim of that thing. It's almost like being a victim is another form of holding on to trauma and holding on to, you know, bad things that you've experienced in life. And that's why I'm saying it's not being a victim that's a problem. It's the person that doesn't want to move past the situation that they're a victim of. It's like holding on to the mentality of being a victim is different from being a victim. And also, I feel like that would make someone very depressed and very anxious as well. If you're constantly thinking someone's out to get you, you're constantly thinking someone has ill will towards you, or you're constantly looking for ways to find harm being done in the world. It's like you don't see the world through a very positive lens. I feel like that's also what leads to depression. Part of depression, by the way, as someone who overcame depression years and years and years ago, a big part of what caused me to be depressed was being very self-focused and very what's the term from it? It was just like I was so focused on my problems and myself and my issues. That was what was causing my depression. I was always focused on myself, and I was always focused on my problems and what's happening in my life. And so I couldn't feel happy because I was so focused on all of these things I felt like that were, and that I feel like that is part of a victim mentality. I felt it was partially because of a victim mentality. I felt like I was a victim because I was dealing with all of these problems in my life, and I wasn't able to be happy with myself. Like, a huge part of why I was unhappy was that I was focused on all of my problems, and being so focused on all of my problems made me depressed because I saw myself as a victim, and I saw life is so hard. I was waiting for someone else to do something for me. So I definitely think these are correlated things. I feel like you're much happier as a person when you feel like you have some control over your life. If you just believe like everything that's happening to you is out of your control, which the truth is, there's a lot of circumstances that people are going to experience that are outside of their control. So that's the truth of the matter. It's like I experienced things that I couldn't control, but when I was focusing on all of these bad experiences that were outside of my control, I felt very depressed. I felt so unhappy in my life. I felt like, you know, everything was just constantly going wrong, or other people were always doing something to me, that it was like blaming other people for all your problems and thinking you have no control over your life will lead to you eventually being depressed. And that's tied to being self-focused. I'm not saying the word I'm wanting to say, but being like really just focused on yourself and your problems, and seeing yourself as a perpetual victim in all of your problems, not taking any sort of personal accountability, not seeing yourself as able to achieve things or do something to help yourself. You know, a lot of those things led to what I felt like was me being depressed. That's part of it. And I feel like some of it is political things. I definitely feel like, you know, when you're consuming a lot of radical, extreme media telling you about all these horrible things happening in the world, that also could lead to someone being depressed, because you're literally only getting all of these consuming all of this negative media about the world. It's going to make you feel like the world is nothing but evil people, and you're not going to feel as, excited or think like there's good people in the world when all you're seeing is negative things happening in the world. I don't think that's beneficial to a person's mentality either, or mental health either. So I feel like there's multiple reasons why someone is depressed or has anxiety. One of it, like my grandmother's anxiety, is from watching the news, and the news purposely posts mostly the negative things happening in the world, because they know that sharing all of the negative things will get them more clicks, will get them more views, will keep people's attention more than sharing the positive things. But my grandmother, if she watches the news, it worsens her anxiety. She starts worrying about all the things happening in the world. And I feel like it's truly not good for someone's mental health to try to consume all this negative media and be aware of all of the negative things happening in the world. Like, there's enough bad things happening just where you live to be so consumed with all of the problems all over the world at all the time. It's too much for you to handle. I made a video about that before. I was like, someone who's empathetic, someone who cares and wants to, make a difference in the world, that's not a wrong thing to want to do. But sometimes people try to take on problems they're not capable of solving or handling. And it's just like, when people are like trying to portray or trying to just care about every single issue in the world, it's really not possible for you to feel positive about the world when all you're consuming is media about all of these major problems happening. And it can be overwhelming. And I feel like it's important for someone to mentally not try to handle all of the problems that are in the world. And I feel like for me as a Christian, that's where it's like my belief in God is like, God is capable of handling all and solving all these problems, even if I can't. I also feel like it's not possible for an individual person to really truly care about every single issue happening in the world. It's like, we can't handle that. It's not healthy for you mentally. It's not healthy for you spiritually. It's like, you are not equipped to, and we really shouldn't be. It's like the fact that we have access to all of these heinous things happening all over the world, and half the time it's like, it doesn't personally affect us, but when you're empathetic and you hear about something traumatic happening to someone else, it's like, it's hard. You almost take on that person's trauma in a sense. Like, that's how I felt a lot of the time. Like, I would hear about someone else's trauma, and I would internalize it, and it would affect me negatively. So that's why I don't want to actively consume negative media, especially if it's going to it's impacting people negatively. And also, it's just like, it can make you feel hopeless. It can make you feel like nothing good is happening in this world. And I think that's another reason people could be more depressed. I think this social activism that's been politicalized, I honestly feel like will give some people a more negative view of the world, that makes them feel more hopeless, that makes them feel more anxious, and that can make them also feel more depressed. Not have a lot of people don't have like a positive outlook on life anymore. And it's funny because one of my coworkers always tell me, Jasmine, you're so positive, because I do. It's like, I'm not trying to negate, but I just don't want to have a negative mindset on things. We had basically everyone at my job had got switched to working with different kids, and the kid I used to work with was basically a child that a lot of my coworkers didn't want to work with because they were more difficult, they were a little bit more challenging. And I was like, he's not that, I was like, they're not that bad. I was used to working with that child, and I was like, it's just like mind over matter. You can't, be so negative about, I wasn't trying to like negate people not wanting to, but I was like, it really wasn't that bad. Like, I didn't see it as like this horrible draining thing on me to work with this child. I was like, yeah, they're challenging some days, but it's really not that bad. And they're like, Jasmine, you're being so positive. Blah, 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 blah. And I was just like, I really just didn't see it. I really just didn't see working with that kid as being this extreme thing or this negative thing. So I don't know. I really just think it's like your mindset controls how you view the world. If you're someone who chooses to see the good in people and the good in things, you'll have a much more positive outlook on life. But if you're someone who chooses to view the negative things in the world and consumes the negative things in the world, that's how you're going to view the world. And to tie it back to something I recently watched, this girl was talking about how the Bible says your eyes are the light of your body. And she interpreted it as being as like, the way your eyes can either bring light to your body or darkness to your body. So if you're looking at the light, at the positive, and consuming things that are good and decent and pure and holy and righteous, that is how you are going to start to view the world. That's how you're supposed to. But when someone is viewing all of these dark things and full of darkness, and that's what they're feeding into their body, they're going to be full of darkness. So when you're focused on things that are good, things that are holy, things that are righteous, that is what you become. But when you're focused on things that are dark and are viewing things that are like full of darkness, that's also what you start to become and have that perspective on the world. So it really is just important to know that, there's a lot of bad things happening in the world, but it is not your responsibility as a human being to take on all of the problems of the world. It's also not possible to you. And I feel like the devil honestly uses some forms of social activism to get people into these depressed states where they feel like there's nothing good in the world and it have this negative. It's literally producing hopelessness in people. It doesn't give people hope. It gives people hopelessness. It's driving people actually crazy, trying to be this social activist, social justice warrior. I feel like that lifestyle or that mentality is eventually destroys someone. At least if they're truly trying to care and truly trying to tackle issues that are, I feel like, truly outside of their control. And it brings a sense of hopelessness to that person's life. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share. I think, like, obviously there's a bunch of other reasons that these things are connected. It's never just going to be one thing. People having trauma, people having negative experiences in the world can lead to someone being anxious and depressed. There's so many things, but it's still like, it's a spiritual battle basically that people are facing when you're struggling with your mental health and issues. As someone who has dealt with depression, I would not wish that on anyone. I understand how hard it is, and the thing that helped me was not focusing on myself so much. When I started focusing on other people and how I could help other people, that changed my perspective on a lot of things, because you stop thinking, like, you realize that other people have problems in this world too, and to be focused on helping people actually is going to bring you a lot more joy than being focused on your problems and how someone else can help you. So yeah, that's all I have to say.